Welcome back to our next session as we continue to learn how to pray prayers of lament. I'm curious to know, I wish I could be talking to you right now because I would love to be able to hear how things went for you between session 2 and session 3 as you took time to be able to write out your complaints to God and the challenges emotionally you may have felt as you did that. But I trust that you did go through that exercise and that experience and beginning to put into practice what it means to lament, what it looks like to lament in your life. I do want to do a quick review of where we've been so far. And just to remember for us that, first of all, God gives us permission and blessing to be people who are mourning the things that are wrong in our lives or in the world around us, that it's okay to weep with those who are weeping, to weep for ourselves in the circumstances that we're going through. And that we are invited into this gift called lament. And step one was turn to God, that we don't turn to medicating our problems. We don't turn to anger, but we make our first step to turn our attention towards God. And then step 2 in lamenting was to bring your complaints to God, to speak in blunt language the very specific pain or injustice that you are seeing or experiencing or feeling in your own life or in the world that's around you. And so we have covered those kind of first 2 steps, but here's what's important. You can't stay permanently in this place in your mind. Like, it is not healthy for you to stay permanently in the place of life is horrible. You cannot stay permanently in the place of God, you've abandoned me and you're never coming back. Because to stay there just leads to damage. It leads to damage to your own mental health. It leads to damage in your relationships around you because you just become a negative person all the time. And it ultimately damages your own soul if you stay in that place of just focusing on everything that is wrong and all that you want to complain about. Listen to what the scriptures say in Philippians chapter 4. Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8. It says this, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things." This is what God wants us to be. He wants us to be honest with Him about what we're experiencing, but at some point we have to come out of that thinking. By the way, this verse that I just read to you, this is the life verse of my mom. And I've told you about some of my mom's own experiences, her experiences of MS and a broken marriage and so much pain and difficulty and health all through her life. And yet she chooses this verse to be the verse that defines her faith and her everyday life. And so what we need is, as we move towards coming out of our complaining, we need something that's going to be like a bridge out of complaint. We need something to kind of bridge us out of this dark, negative kind of space that we're in and move us in a more positive direction. So what you will often see in the Bible when it comes to lamenting prayers is you're going to see connecting words like but or yet or and. Let me give you an example. In Psalm 69, verse 12 and verse 13. So verse 12, he says, "I'm the talk of those who sit in the gate, and the drunkards make songs about me." Like, God, everybody's making fun of me. Everybody's putting me down. Even the drunkards are writing songs about me to make fun of me. And then verse 13, here's the bridge out of the complaint. "But as for me, my prayer is to you, O Lord." You see that but word. At Psalm 85, we see the same kind of thing in verses 14 and 15. sorry, not Psalm 85. I'll go back to Psalm 22. Psalm 22, and we will look at verse 3 to 5. Psalm 22, verse 3 to 5. Yet you are holy. There's the bridge. Verse 2 says, "Oh my God, I cry by day, but you don't answer. By night I find no rest." There's the lament. There's the complaint. Verse 3, "Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel." There's that picture of this bridge. And so what you want to have when you're praying a prayer of lament is you need some type of a bridge to get you out of it. You need some type of a word like but, or yet, or and, that begins to turn your attention into a different direction than staying in the negative space. And that leads us to step 3 of every lament prayer. Step 3 is where you come and you ask boldly. You ask God boldly what it is that you want. Mark Vroegop, in his book, Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy, says the next leg in our journey involves confidently calling upon God to act in accordance with his character. It's how lament moves from the why question of complaint to the who question of requests. So let me give you an example of what that looks like. We're in Psalm 22 already. So let's stay in Psalm 22 and look at what bold requests look like. And if you have a Bible with you, you may want to mark it up, circle some words in here as we're working through this, and identify the different bold requests that David is making. So we've already seen his lament earlier in the psalm. He's like, "God, where are you? You've forsaken me, yet you are holy." Now we move down in beginning at verse 11. "Be not far from me, for trouble is near, and there is none to help. Many bulls encompass me, strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open wide their mouths at me like a ravening and roaring lion. I'm poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It's melted within my breast. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to my jaws. For you lay me in the dust of death. For dogs encompass me, a company of evildoers encircles me. They've pierced my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. They stare and gloat over me. They divide my garments among them." Does this begin to sound familiar to you? This is a messianic psalm, a prophetic psalm of what Jesus was going to go through. "They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots." And then verse 19 is where we start to see asking boldly. But you, O Lord, don't be far off. O you, my help, come quickly to my aid. God, I want you to show up quickly. All these people are out to get me. They're out to kill me. My bones are falling apart. My muscles are weak. I can't do anything. Come quickly to help me, God. That's my bold request. Verse 20, "Deliver my soul from the sword." Like, there's not even like a, "God, if you please, if it's your will, would you please, pretty please deliver me?" It's a, "No, God, I'm coming boldly and saying, would you deliver me from this? Would you save me from the mouth of the lion?" Again, think through this reality that you are invited to pray boldly and give bold requests, but lament does not promise a solution to your problem. It provides the way for you to process your problem with God. And so this is what is happening in this psalm here. And when you think about the story of Jesus, you know he ultimately ends up dying on the cross. But he's still able to ask God boldly. In Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 15 and verse 16, we read these words. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15 and 16. Let me just pull it up here. The scriptures say, "We do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every way in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet he's without sin. So let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Confidence means free and fearless confidence. It is an invitation from God for you to be bold with God with your requests. That God invites you to come to not just bring your complaint to him, but now to actually ask him boldly for a solution to whatever it is that's going on. So if you see injustice in the world, you're able to go to God and you're able to lament what's going on in the world. And then you're able to say, but God, would you just make it all right? But God, would you just bring justice in this situation? Mark Vrogop in the book, Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy, says it this way: part of the grace of lament is the way it invites us to pray boldly even when we're bruised badly. What is it that we're supposed to ask God for, though? So, you're listening to me say, well, okay, Kirk, I hear you say ask God boldly, but what am I allowed to ask God for? So I'm going to take you through some things that are biblical solutions, 9 things that we can ask God for from the scriptures. And we're going to take this all right from the Psalms. So go back in your Bible, open up to Psalm chapter 10. We'll be at Psalm 10 to start with. So here are some examples of things that we can ask God for. Psalm 10, verse 12. Arise, O Lord, O God, lift up your hand, forget not the afflicted. Here's what that psalm is praying. Here's what they're asking God for. God, would you just fix what is wrong in the world? You can ask God to just fix what is wrong in the world. The next one of things that you can ask God for, Psalm 60, verse 11 and verse 12. Oh, grant us help against the foe, for vain is the salvation of man. With God we shall do valiantly. It is he who will tread down our foes. There's just this picture of actually being able to go to God and say, God, would you just deliver us? Would you trample down our enemies? Would you rescue us? Would you give us strength in the battle that we are in? You can ask God for those things. Back in Psalm 25, we see another picture of things that we can ask God for. Psalm 25, verse 6. Remember your mercy, O Lord, and your steadfast love, for they have been of old. That you can go to God and say, God, I know you've promised these things. Remember your promises, God. That's a bold prayer. God, I know you said that this is the way that you want things to be. And so I'm asking you, would you remember what you've said? The fourth thing that we can ask God for is found in Psalm 83. Psalm 83, verse 16. Fill their faces with shame that they may seek your name, O Lord. Let them be put to shame and dismayed forever. Let them perish in disgrace. Imagine praying that. That they may know that you alone, whose name is the Lord, are the most high over all the earth. What are they praying for? They're just praying for justice to be done. God, would you let justice be done in the world? Fifth thing that you can ask God for, we read in Psalm 51 and verse 1. Psalm 51 and verse 1. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love, according to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Psalm 51 verse 1, a lamenting prayer is just, God, would you please blot out all my sins? Would you please, don't remember my sin? Would you put that behind you? In Psalm 80, verse 3, we can see the sixth thing that we can ask God for when it comes to lamenting and asking boldly. Restore us, O God. Let your face shine that we might be saved. It's just this bold picture of God. We know the way things used to be, and we're broken, and things have fallen apart, and things aren't the way that they used to be. Life is a mess, and we're coming to you, God, after telling you how we know that life is a mess, and we're sorry for our own sinfulness, and we can't stand the circumstances of our life right now. But God, we're asking boldly that you would restore us. You would restore all that is good and right and healthy and helpful in our lives. That you can invite God to restore those things in your life. Number 7 thing to ask for, we see in Psalm 28. Psalm 28, verse 1 and verse 2. To you, O Lord, I call, my rock. Be not deaf to me. Because if you be silent to me, I become like those who go down to the pit. Hear the voice of my pleas for mercy. When I cry to you for help, when I lift up my hands towards your most holy sanctuary. What you're asking God for is, God, don't be silent. Please don't be silent, but listen to me. Listen to what I have to say. And then the next one, the 8th thing that we can ask God for. We can see in a couple of different passages, but we're just going to look at one of them. Psalm 143 and verse 10. Psalm 143 and verse 10 says, teach me to do your will, for you are my God. Let your good spirit lead me on level ground. That you can just simply come to God boldly and say, God, would you just teach me? Just teach me what I need to know. And then one final thing that we can ask God for. In Psalm 35 and verse 23 and verse 24. Psalm 35, verse 23 and 24. Awake and rouse yourself for my vindication, for my cause, my God and my Lord. Vindicate me, O Lord my God, according to your righteousness. Let them not rejoice over me. There's just this picture of there's injustice that's being done against me. And not only do I want justice, which is a different bold request, but God, I'm actually asking you to vindicate me because I know I've done nothing wrong in this situation. So boldly coming to God and saying, would you vindicate me in this situation? Lament, again, Mark Vrogop from his book, he says, lament invites us to ask boldly. The wide variety of requests in the lament psalms help us to see that no matter what the pain or how long the struggle, we need to keep asking God. And so I want you to think about this. What would happen? What would happen to us if we just stopped the lament process at complaint and we didn't move towards asking boldly? If you only just complain to God, you would have no hope. You would live in a dark place, and yet there's this bridge out of that place of complaint to move you towards this place of now asking God boldly. But there are some times in life where you don't know how to ask God boldly for something. There are moments in life where you just think to yourself, I can't do this. I don't know what to even ask for. And this is why it's so important for you to surround yourself with other people who can pray with you and pray for you in your circumstances. There's a beautiful passage in James chapter 5 and verse 16. It says, therefore confess your sins to one another and pray for one another, that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person has great power as it's working. There is power that is found when someone else prays boldly for you. There's just this picture of being able to come to God in prayer. Look at verse 17. We have this great picture of Elijah. We don't often think of Elijah in the way he's portrayed in verse 17. We think of Elijah as being this super spiritual prophet. But in verse 17, it says, Elijah was a man with a nature just like ours. Like the Bible wants you to understand that Elijah was no different than you and me. He was just a guy. And he prayed fervently that it might not rain. He asked God boldly that it would not rain. And for 3 years and 6 months, it did not rain on the earth. Then he prayed again, and heaven gave rain, and the earth bore its fruit. Why is that story here? Because it's a picture that any person can ask God boldly for things. When you lament for yourself or when you're helping someone else to lament, you need to be able to come with confidence because of what Jesus has done for you. You can come with confidence and ask boldly before your Father what it is that you would like him to do in that situation. So here's what I want you to do as we come to the end of session 3. I want you to take some time this week. I want you to go back to your complaints that you wrote out last week, and I want you to repeat them in prayer this week. But now this time, I want you to take it another step and say, now that I've brought that complaint to God, what is it that I actually want God to do about it? What does it mean to ask God boldly for something in response to that complaint that I've brought before him? Take that as your assignment between now and the next session, and take that time to process this space with God. And we'll come into our final session as we wrap up some final thoughts on how we can live out lamenting prayers in our life.